So here we are, we're at the next category, the next tab along, the health and well-being one. So the ventilation, HW1 here. So for this example, if we look back at a site plan, just in terms of the exemplary performance there, it's unlikely that it's going to get it because you need to be 10 meters from any source of pollution, air pollution. So there's quite, the road, the parking, etc. So it's unlikely the exemplary would be possible here. So we'll leave that at zero. And to do that, you'd need to, unless there was some of the apartments, for example, or the units, you might be able to get it. There might be some of them that it would be possible for. And then if you think you will be able to have the mechanical ventilation system, it should be quite doable here. You may not go for the six because that would have ongoing maintenance and monitoring, etc. So the four is probably achievable. Again, that's across there. The daylighting one looks at the daylight factor in the living room and the kitchen and the bedrooms. So there is a manual calculator that um, the Green Building Council provide, which is based on this daylight factor calculator. So there's an example given. You need to kind of read down through the notes to kind of understand it, but I'm gonna show you the VLUX or the VLUX software, which I think is niftier and a little bit easier to use. But this is also fine. This is good. You put in the areas of each room. So, or sorry, the name of the room, the area of the ceiling, the floor, the wall, and the and the window dimensions, and you get a total here. So that you only input in the white boxes. So these are given. And if you want to kind of see, if you double click, it should work. Maybe it's because it's an example. Let's go into room one. If you double click like any Excel spreadsheet, you'll get you should get here it is, the formulas, how it's being calculated. But you put in the height of the window, the thickness of the wall, distance from the window to obstruction outside, and the same thing for the height. And that basically is telling you this how much sky is available and therefore how much light is available, and the average daylight factors are calculated. So you do that for each of those rooms and then it will summarize it for you here. um, or if you're not aware of this, it's available, and it's actually the link is given in the manual anyway as an acceptable method, which, and it is quite nifty if you haven't used it before. There's the download here on the VLUX website. So what you do is you the um, draw your room. It can do kind of, quite well, I was about to say complicated. I can't do curves, but you could approximate those. So if you have curves in your building, then you go down here to your height of your wall and the thickness of your wall, whatever it is, and you go along and you put in your ceiling type. So if it's an apartment, it's going to be a flat roof or ceiling. It has options to do a one slope or a two slope roof, but let's leave it at flat. Then you put in your location. So you can again, if you don't have, if it's not going to have, every part of the world, but you can approximate it like based on Dublin, and then you can adjust your orientation. See your arrow there is moving around. Again, you can approximate that. Then you put in windows and doors, so you can put in facade, and this is where the VLUX bit comes in because they're talking about their products, I suppose. So you can do quite realistic representations of what you have here. You can even talk about the lining properties, so how big the X and stuff is there. You can do it on the different sections, so where you put them. Where did that go? So you'd say okay, and then you can do another one on another facade. Okay. Oh, it selected, so I can change it to, yeah, facade window 2, facade window 1, etc. You can play with this. And then your surfaces, you can choose the different floor surfaces. You can, again, approximate exactly what you have here for the ceiling, the wall. You can really go to town here, or do custom things there. You could even put in furniture to really represent what might happen. You can set up where the cameras are, where your view height you want it to be. So this is your cutting plane. So it's probably like depending on what it is, but if it's a kitchen or something, you might decide that should be 900, whereas the viewing plane would normally be kind of 650 to 750, like a desktop height, I suppose. You can either set the area that you want to look at, or you can look at the whole thing. You can pick a sensor point. Sorry, you can upload those if you wish. Sorry, you can look at the plan, you can look at a cross section, or you can look at perspective as you go, and then you render it. It's like any of these things. So you're going to be looking at daylight factor, but you can look at other things, which is quite nifty. Daylight factor is always overcast sky, and it doesn't matter the time of the year, and it doesn't matter the time of the day, because it's a ratio of the light outside to inside. The resolution, obviously, the higher you go here, the longer it'll take to render. It's actually just doing it on my other, you can see here. I think I might have interrupted it when I moved it. Let's try that again, and I won't touch it now while it's doing its thing. Okay. And it will produce, actually I think it's because I didn't end up putting any windows in somehow. So let's go back, and yeah, let's try it now. And it's still not working. Why is that? What did I do wrong? Sorry, it's worth noting down here that yeah, I did that. I definitely did it. Let's add a roof product and see, does that help? Uh, it appeared here and the window has not appeared here, so I'm wondering, can I remove edit selected? Let's just say okay. It's like inside on height above floor. Yeah, that should be okay. I wonder, can you not go back? Okay, I don't have any. Oh yeah, I have no inner walls. Yeah, something odd there. Let's do a new project to save. Nope, I'll do a real quick one, and I'll just go straight to windows and doors. Oh, maybe you're not allowed. That location. We can stick to Paris. That's definitely different. I wonder, when I put more than one in one facade, did that override what had happened? Anyway, and let's put in a roof product while we're at it. Okay, now we see them there, that it's different. We'll leave that as was, and now hopefully we will get, yes, something more interesting is happening now. And as you see, it's like even at that kind of basic, it's quite so there. So show the contours. Ah, I ran it for luminance. I told you this would be like watching. Now, bingo, finally got there. So what you can do is what I was trying to do, third time lucky, is you can set the max daylight factor. So in our case it's 2, so you can see for the different living, or it could be 1.5, and you can also look at the different zones, so you can get an idea then about how achievable the average is, essentially. So it's actually very useful in that way. There is you can get a still image, you can get a overview, or you can get animations. So you can have a play around with that, but I think it's quite a nifty tool to have a look. Now, I wouldn't suggest for your brief you're going to be doing that for every single house if you're doing housing development, but you may do it for a typical unit, and look at the bedroom, a typical bedroom and a typical living and kitchen space, and it's even just useful. I think it's quite a useful tool generally to know about if you haven't used it already. Okay, I do not want to save. Um, then where were we? We were in here. Yes, so you can see then if you how achievable all of the different daylight factors are for the unit that you have. Then looking at the airborne sound insulation. So these, I suppose this it'd probably be unlikely that big developments are going to exceed the regs, which is kind of what is kind of what's required for to go higher than. So again, just depending on less than 54, I think is just the reg level. So it's just when you begin to get insulation beginning to go above that, you start to get points. So as far as I remember, the 54 is the just the reg level. So in developments like this, it's unlikely, and maybe you can kind of figure out, you can guesstimate again with your own project how likely that is to go above the 54 decibels. I suppose that you need to be designing for that to get good results, and if you're going for if you want to get above the 0 points, you really need to design for it, and it needs to be factored in kind of as a cost, an extra cost for the materials and things. So as we're more conscious of attenuating for sound externally, so along motorways or busy roads in housing developments, there'll be good, you know, external buffering for sound, but not so good when it comes to internal. And yeah, especially in apartments and stuff, it's not something we're very good at yet, I suppose, in this country. When it comes to and then the internal sources of noise, again, they're just in accordance with the table given, and that's across the board. So whether you think you'd make those or not, you can put in there. The overheating results, the dynamic simulation, like not many people are doing it, so and it's unlikely that you'll be able to do that. I'm talking about the example I've given there. You might be able to kind of you'll be able to apply that to your own project, and in terms of using the revised deep overheating calculator just to see if you're in compliance with it, or if you're using PHPP. So let's hope, assume that that is doable in this case. And the same at winter comfort. You need a higher spec of window, I suppose, for to achieve that. So you probably wouldn't assume that a developer or your client is going to be willing to pay for that. If it's a development, I'm not. If it's a one-off house, then they may be more willing. So it would need to kind of be examined from a cost point of view. So let's say that that's not going to be done in this case because it's a large housing development. You will be able to kind of evaluate if you think you'll be able to put in a higher spec or window or not. So there's a cost element to the winter comfort. The summer comfort is a design issue, as in it should be designed out, and it can be designed out with no cost implication, and it would be the best practice to be doing that. You wouldn't, you wouldn't want to think that you're just by virtue of your design that you're introducing an overheating risk. So that should be kind of cost neutral, or as this may incur a cost. So you can have a think about that in relation to your own projects. The low VOC then, yeah, 1 point should be achievable if you specify the low VOC products. Probably the testing is not as likely, so I would stick with 1 point for here. This again, so yeah, whatever about doing the testing, you could definitely get the point for the products. It needs to be specified, it needs to be managed a bit on site as well to make sure that that's actually what goes in. But it shouldn't be a big cost uplift to do that. And they do have a spreadsheet. I mean, this is not necessary for you to do for your project, but just to be aware that it's there. But it's just to list out the products. They've just got 2 columns, and you'd have to include the VOC limits. But there's no like sum or anything. It's literally just a list. This is the declaration that needs to be signed by the contractor. And then when it comes to the radon, this is again probably easily enough incorporated into any tender documentation to make the contractor aware that this is something that would have to do. So they'd have to correctly install the radon monitors. They'd need to measure it, and then they'd need to remedy any defects. So again, that might be a minimal cost that you could include. Now it is going beyond the regulation, if you remember. I think it was 200 the regs is asking for, whereas this asks for 50. So if you think that's something that you could ask your contractor to do or could be incorporated into your construction process, you can award your 2 points. Drinking water quality, I'm going to say 0 again. Again, it comes back to this fact that it's not under your control. It depends on Irish Water, and I suppose there's more of a risk in doing that because I mean in putting the time, the energy and the cost into doing that test, because the likelihood is even if you get a negative result, there's nothing you can do about that water test. So I'm going to put 0 for here. You might think otherwise for your own. So I suppose it's hard to commit that you can achieve it. You may achieve it if you do the test, but it's difficult to commit that you would. So then the walkable is the one that's assessed under location again. So again, similarly, we have a total, the total points possible and what's been achieved. So we're coming in at kind of roughly half there.